Hello, and welcome to the new hit TV show, Surviving with Matuch. Today, Michael will be surviving in the East Auroran outback. He'll be going over how to construct a shelter made of elements found in nature, how to build and light a fire, and how to boil water with freeze-dried food. In his backpack, he has a sleeping mat, a tarp, not one light, not two lights, but three different lights, some rope, a cover for his backpack, an extra hat, fire starting equipment, a water purification system, some freeze-dried food, and some extra layers of clothes. He also has some pots and pans for boiling water, and of course, silverware. Right now I'm currently looking for the start of our shelter, which will be a triangle formed by two strong sticks or logs that will support the rest of the structure. Something else that was in my backpack was my saw. I forgot to include this because it was in a side compartment that I just forgot to look at. I began to set up my logs so they could be lashed together. A lashing is wrapping a rope around the two logs so they could be held together firmly. As I start my lashings, I first tie a clove hitch knot around the log. This prevents the lashing from becoming loosened and untightening. Next, I'm going to wrap around my rope around the logs in a over-under fashion. This keeps the logs nice and tight together. At this point, the logs have become very secured together, and now I feel the lashings don't need to be wrapped around as much anymore. Now, I'm going to wrap the rope around the lashings themselves. This prevents the rope from becoming undone. Now that my lashings are done and nice and tight, I'm going to find a nice log to lay across and be the main beam. And I had to make sure I could lay underneath it with ease. I then began the process of laying down the supporting sticks where the pine needle roof will sit on top. I then began the process of adding a pine needle roof. This will keep the heat in whilst I sleep during the night. Hydration. Something that I did not expect was the amount of time that would have to go into creating my pine needle roof. It took me about the same length of time as collecting all the wood and cutting it. It was about 3 hours of collecting pine needles. But overall, it is so important that the heat is kept inside the shelter that it's worth it. I wish I had had a rake, but This is the view from inside. Now I'm going to take out this tarp and knock off all of these pine needles that went through, and I'm going to put them back on top. Now I say with confidence that the structure and fort is done. As of right now, I've taken out the tarp on the inside. This, in a little bit, I will be using a tactic where I used a charred log from a fire to push out all of the insects and or bugs that could be living inside the wood or pine needles right now. Once that is done, then the structure will be sleep-worthy, and I will be able to sleep in it. Now that the structure is complete, and that we have this open area cleared of pine needles, now we can start building our fire. I've collected some kindling, some tinder, and some fuel. The kindling is used in the very beginning stages of the fire. This allows the fire to catch, spark, and ignite. These, what I'm using here, are tiny sticks that are nice, thin, and dry. To help that, I will be using sawdust that I've collected from the sawing. And from home, this is what I prefer to use. This is dryer lint and eggshell cartons. The dryer lint is very flammable, so it sparks up very easily. The tinder is used as the fire gets bigger and bigger. This allows the fire to catch, spread, and grow. Once we get past that point, we move on to fuel. This is big sticks and other logs. These logs keep the fire burning once the kindling and the tinder have gone out. As the base of the fire, since the ground is slightly damp, I will be using bark from the main structural beams on the structure. To give myself an extra challenge, I will be using flint and steel to start my fire instead of normal matches. Flint and steel creates sparks that look like this. The sparks will make the dry lint catch on fire, which will make the kindling catch on fire, and so on as the fire begins to grow in size. Right now I'm just going to tear off little pieces and put them in the center. If you don't tear them apart, then there's a lack of oxygen in between them. When you stretch them out like this, there's more surface area for the flames to ignite and catch. Now I'm going to rip off tiny pieces of the egg carton, place them around. On this side, I'm going to leave the gap where I will light the fire outside and then place it inside. It's easier than just shooting the flint and steel right at it, because the flint and steel, the sparks can fly in many separate ways. So when it's nice and easily contained, it's easier to light. Now, I'm going to take some of the wood shavings, sprinkle them over top. Next, I will get the kindling and tinder and begin to build the teepee fire. I've now found a nice dry and dead tree, which will now provide much more needed wood for the fire. Now that there's so much tinder on kindling on the fire, now I'm going to put on these small amounts of fuel. Now we've come to a point where the fire is almost ready to be lit. As I look at the fire piles, I realize that they are mostly depleted. A lot of the times people start a fire, it often goes out not because they couldn't light the fire, but because there's not enough fuel and tinder to keep the fire going. Before I light this fire, I'm going to collect more tinder. Right now I'm going to use my flint and steel to start my dryer lint. I'll place it on the egg carton and I will place it in the fire where the fire will light. Making a nice gap for where I'm going to put it. This is take 1 of me lighting a fire with flint and steel. Now that the fire is lit, I'm going to add more tinder. The point of view of the camera made the fire look a lot bigger than it actually was, and also made my face appear much closer to it. The kindling and starter wood is beginning to go out, so I'm going to have to start to replenish that as well. Uh-oh, this is not looking too hot. Might go out. The fire is now looking well stocked, so I hope it does not go out. Something else in my backpack that I forgot about was my fire gloves. You'll see the importance of these in the scene coming up. I've added more and more fuel to the fire. I've added a few logs. Once those logs begin to burn down and char more, I'm going to place them inside the structure. The smoke from the logs will make all of the bugs and insects leave the wood, which will further secure my safety inside and will ensure nothing gets to me at all. I took the log out of the fire and allowed it to stop burning. Once it was only smoking, I put it in the shelter. As the log continues to char and smoke, all of the bugs will leave, and then there will be nothing inside except for me. Now that it's been a few hours, now's a good time to check on the log inside of the structure. The log itself is still warm, but I'm going to take it out because whatever was inside hopefully has left the building by then. Now I'm going to begin to set up my sleeping area before I make myself dinner. To start, I'm going to lay down a tarp base. This prevents water from the ground seeping up into my sleeping bag and my sleeping mat. Also, it prevents water that could be rolling down the hill from getting inside the shelter. Next, I'm going to get my sleeping mat. I'm going to lay that in as well. I should also add that the creased side of the tarp is on the uphill side. In case water decides to roll down, it will go under the tarp instead of inside, as if it were open like this. I'm going to turn the sleeping mat upside down so it does not curl up whilst I am not in there. Now that my sleeping mat is in there, I'm going to get my sleeping bag and bivvy from inside of my bag. Inside my stuff bag here, I have a liner, a sleeping bag, and a bivvy. The liner is going to go inside of my sleeping bag and will actually add another 10 to 15 degrees of warmth. My sleeping bag is a 30-degree sleeping bag and will keep me warm up to that point. Tonight's temperature is going to be around 28-30 degrees, so with the combination of the liner and the bag, I will be warm the entire time. My bivvy, I think, is the most important thing. It is a Gore-Tex shell that the sleeping bag will go inside. This Gore-Tex shell will prevent any water from getting in or water from getting out. So without for this, water could come in from the top and I soak into my sleeping bag and I would get wet. But with this, the water will roll right off. So this ensures that I have a nice warm night. As of right now, I'm going to leave it in this bag because I don't want to roll up my sleeping bag and let a bug or something crawl right up inside. So I'm going to keep it right in here and I will unroll it and pack it up once the night falls. Now it is time for our meal. The rice and chicken. I added some more fuel to the fire. Hopefully it doesn't go out. Kind of concerning right now, not much going on, but I have all this stuff over here. So as night begins to set in, I have my headlamp ready and I feel like it's time to start dinner. So sadly, since my water purification stuff is not working as well as I hoped it would, I've decided to go to my backup gallon in the car. So I have that right here. Oh, that's a flame on me, okay. So the instructions say that my rice and chicken should have about 2 cups of water, which is, I measured out before. It goes to about 3/4 of the way full. Now I'm going to carefully set this on the coals. That looks good. That looks good. Now, in case it happens to where some charcoal or something gets inside the water, I'm not going to be too worried about that. A little protein never hurt nobody. The water has come to a boil, and now it is time to add to the rice and chicken mix. As the water boiled more and more, sadly lots and lots of sticks have fallen in, but I said before, just lots of more protein to have with my food. Gonna open it up. I'm gonna look for the do not eat package and read the rest of the things. The instructions have been read. I've got my handy dandy glove, and I'm going to get ready to pour. There's a lot of sticks in here. Not very good, but we'll have to make do. Now that the water's been added, I'm going to close the seal and mush it around. Let the water get to all of the corners. And I'm gonna let it cook. I'll be back in 8 to 9 minutes. It's been about 15 minutes, and let's see how my chicken and rice is. But first I want to show off my sleeping area. Still got everything nice and neat. You can see way back, fire is lighting up nice and big. But as my door for the night, I'm actually going to be using my not my sleeping bag, but my backpack. So it's going to go right here across the entire thing. It's going to keep me nice and inside. Let's see how the chicken and rice looks. Just a perfect amount of rice, chicken, and sticks. Overall, very yummy. Now comes the easiest part of the trip. I'm gonna sit by the fire. Brought a nice Arizona iced tea, Arnold Palmer. Found it deep in the backpack. I'm gonna drink this as I watch the fire burn down. I might add some more logs to it as it goes on, but sooner rather than later, I'm gonna be ready for bed, and I'm gonna let you know when that happens. Thanks. Now that the fire's beginning to die down, I'm gonna start my preparation for my sleeping area. This includes me taking out my bivy, my liner, and my sleeping bag. I'm actually gonna set it up outside. Try not to get on the ground too much, because if I were to set it up inside the structure, I would have a larger chance of me kicking or touching one of the inside sticks and causing the structure to fall apart, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to set it up right here, and I'll show you what it looks like once I'm done. Besides me going in the sleeping bag, I'm actually going to put in tomorrow's pair of pants and tomorrow's socks. This is a little trick that I like to do, because it'll make sure that my pants and my socks are nice and warm for the next day. And it also gives me nice and easy access to them tomorrow morning, so I don't got to worry about me going into my bag or messing something up once I'm actually ready to get up in the morning. So now I'm inside my shelter. Fire's been put out. Everything's nice and dark. It's about 11:45. About time to go to bed. I'll see you guys in the morning. Good morning. It's now around 6:45. Just woke up. My legs are getting a little cold, so I'm gonna get up and get ready to get out of here. But sleeping was alright. I woke up a few times, but nothing to complain about. But all in all, it's mostly very comfortable. My sleeping bag has now been rolled up and put inside the backpack. Now it's time to roll up the sleeping mat and tarp, and then head out. I wanted to make sure I left everything I came with, so I had to take down the shelter to get the rope I used for my lashings. As I left my shelter, I began to reflect on my Nichols career. I've met so many amazing friends and teachers who pushed me to grow as a person. I want to thank my family for their huge amounts of time and energy that they've invested into my education. I would also like to thank my thesis mentor, Mr. Harden, and all other editors for their feedback on my thesis video. A special thanks goes out to the thesis committee and all other viewers watching for their time. Thank you for tuning into Surviving with Matuch.